So it's a roll call.
Ron Narcand,
Here.
Dan Rath,
Here.
Jeremy Hall,
Here.
Jay Luke,
Here.
and Keith Karpinski.
Here.
Everybody is here today.
Right. On our agenda.
Take a motion, we approve the agenda. As presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Does anyone have an issue with moving number 14 up on our agenda?
For two.
Probably after number 6.
Okay.
If not, all's in favor?
Aye.
Carries. What are minutes from our March 12th meeting?
Move to approve.
Any discussion on the minutes? Favor?
Aye.
Carries. Are there any public comments? No. All right, how about supervisors not seated as committee members? Any comments? All right, let's talk about the resolution for the library plan.
Wendy?
Yeah, I will. I'm a lefty.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, thanks, Claire. Morning, everyone. We're grateful for a little bit of your time this morning. Thanks for adjusting the agenda for us as well. We appreciate that. So we are here representing on behalf of the Polk County Library Services Planning Committee. I'm Amanda Blackman. I'm the director at the Public Library in Frederick.
And I'm Heather Wyarda, and I'm the director of the Amory Area Public Library.
Yes, and we also have another committee member here, Chris Serba. She's a avid rural library user from Clam Falls. So thank you for being here. So this morning, I just wanted to start off a couple of quick questions just to kind of get a feel for the room here. So number one, who of us is working for the residents of Polk County? You, good, okay. And our second question then is, how many of us feel that fiscal responsibility is important? Okay, all right, that's a pretty good vibe, right? So we're kind of all on the same page here, right? We're all starting from the same spot. You as supervisors were elected by the residents of Polk County, right? To sit as supervisors. And we as librarians serve those residents every day, right? So 309,000 times last year to be exact. So that kind of brings us to the point of why we're here today. We have updated 2024 circulation numbers from our library that we wanted to share with you today. So.
Okay. So the reason we're here today is really simple. We're out of state compliance. Our last county library plan expired in 2024, and we need your help getting that fixed. In your packet today, you should have the plan and the resolution that the Polk County Library Planning Committee drafted. And we would love to leave here today with your support and recommendation to bring this plan and resolution to the full board. So let's begin.
Right, so who uses the libraries? Everybody can use the libraries, right? So for all intents and purposes for this presentation, it's kind of three groups of library users, right? So we have residents in the municipality where the library is located. And then we have residents that are rural outside of the municipalities. It's still in Polk County. And then everybody else, right? So from Barron County or Burnett or Minnesota, wherever, everybody else that uses the libraries. So next. So this gives us kind of an idea, just a visual, right, of Polk County and all the rural population here of almost 32,000. And then our municipal population, about half that. So here are all of our libraries. And then this is just giving you some circulation of visits to our libraries. So the resident borrowers here are people within the municipality that have a library card. It's all of the rural population that has a library card. So about 62% of registered borrowers. But one little caveat to this is that some households have one library card for a whole library, right, or a whole family, right? So like I have one library card and I check out books for my 3 and 4-year-old, right? And so that still counts for circulation numbers, but that's only one registered borrower. Next slide, Claire. So this is the breakdown then of that actual circulation of the books being checked out. And so here's all the people within the municipalities that have checked out books in 2024. Here's all the rural population that checked out books. In the middle here is the people that have a library card, say in Frederick, and they go down to use the Luck Library or St. Croix, wherever, right? And then everybody else from different countries. So this is our total CERC population. That was the number that I had said at the, so it is being used, and it's, 62% of what, well, this is 52% of what our circulation numbers all go to rural residents. Next slide.
Okay, so just a quick recap of how libraries are funded. Libraries are funded by 3 sources. 1, the municipality that the library is located in. 2, the county. So for us, Polk County, for residents who live outside of the municipality. And then the 3rd source is other counties who have residents that use that library. So each municipality or county reimburses the library based on actual usage. So the numbers that you were looking at, those aren't projections, those are the actual usages that happened last year. So the county currently reimburses us at 95%, and we are asking today that you fund us at 100% reimbursement in line with the actual usage by rural residents.
Thank you. So I think most of you were in here when we had presented to you in July. And you may be familiar with the Act 150. So that's the state statute that allows for the county funding to fund the public libraries then. Just based on our checkouts and our operating expenditures. We'll go through that in a moment. And so it's just a reminder that that this payment is outside of the county levy cap, right? And so it's essentially the county is a pass-through for the taxpayers' funds to go to the libraries. So if funding is cut or goes away, that money can't be used by the county for anything else. Essentially, it just lowers the taxpayers' bill by $34 at the moment. So just as a reminder of where this presentation is coming from. Next, thank you. So we'll go through some charts here. You're Gen Gov, and so you probably see a lot of charts, I guess, in your time here. So just bear with me. So here's our total expenditures, and we'll go through this, how we get to this in a moment here from each of the libraries, the circulation numbers that we just went through. So if you divide that, this is the cost per checkout then. And then we are able to put that on the circulation, the number of actual checkouts that's being used, and that's our rural population. And that comes to 1.1 there that you can see. And the current county payments are at 95%, so $1,070,000 there, a difference of about almost 87 there, is kind of what we are asking for today. Next slide. So here are the libraries and the populations within the municipality. So remember that the funding, one of the sources comes from the municipality. They're the libraries located in. So this is what the municipality pays libraries. And then you divide that to get the per capita for each of the people within the municipality. So you can see the residents for our rural population and the counties, and you divide that, and that's per capita per person. So that's currently what each taxpayer in the rural population is paying, right? Per capita, $34. And so our ask then at 100% drops or brings it up $2.76 more. Right, so $37 per capita for our rural residents is what our ask is today. So, and again, this is just a reimbursement of numbers that have already been used. The numbers that we're showing you are what was actually used by rural residents last year, right?
Okay. So, don't know what kind of car you drive, what the tank is like, and depending on the day, who knows how much gas costs, but we're just going to say for this, for less than the price of a tank of gas, residents can get all kinds of services from their public libraries. One of them, high-speed internet and computer access. Polk County Libraries had 15,000 public computer sessions in 2024. So that's 15,000 separate incidences of someone coming to the library and using a library computer. Public wireless had 55,000 uses. So those are people who are coming in and using a library computer, or maybe they have a computer and they don't have Wi-Fi at home, so they're bringing that there. So all of these people using our internet and computer access are residents that either don't have internet at home, don't have a computer at home, or both. These people are coming to the library and using computers for all kinds of reasons, but something that I personally see a lot that I help people with is they're filing taxes, they're checking on their Medicare or Medicaid, they are looking into Social Security benefits or VA benefits, they're creating or printing resumes, they're searching for jobs, all kinds of uses for this. So they really rely on free access to the internet. Another thing, for that tank of gas, residents get help with job searches. So library staff help users on a regular basis with job seeking. How do I format this resume? I need to email it and I don't know how to send an attachment. People know that they can come to the nearest public library for help with job seeking. And something really cool that's happening at Amory right now is we just won a grant worth over $6,000 to add a dedicated workspace for job seekers. It's called a job pod, and it's an insulated room, kind of soundproofed, where people can do online interviews. Job pod comes with a laptop they can borrow. It's connected to Workforce Development Board resources. It's preloaded with Job Center of Wisconsin website, and we're able to train people, how do you set up an account? How do you log in? How do you search for a job in Polk County? Because we want our people to stay in Polk County. So library staff, experience, expertise, and then with this grant is another example of how much libraries can help serve residents who are looking for jobs. Another thing that tank of gas gets residents is school resources. So we see this a lot in Amory, and I know a lot of other libraries do this as well. If a teacher needs 50 books about something like frogs for her 4th grade class, she's not going to be able to get 50 frog books at her individual school library. So they contact the public library and say, hey, 4th grade class, I need about 50 frog books. We bring them in. And the really cool thing about that is nobody's incurring additional cost for that. So the school doesn't have to pay extra money for that. The teacher doesn't have to pay out of pocket for that. The county doesn't have to pay extra for that, and the library doesn't have to pay extra for that. It's part of our everyday expenses that are already planned out and budgeted for. Another thing the tank of gas could get you is early literacy education. This is one of the ones that most librarians are really passionate about, is getting kids to learn how to read so that they can have great lives. So story time isn't just reading books out loud and playing with kids. It's usually a kid's first organized, professionally led literacy class. We're reaching the kids before they even get to the schools. When they're younger and they can't go to school, we're helping them learn how to read, and we're helping them learn how to do school type stuff. Parents learn how to teach their children to read and how to encourage their reading. And we all know that strong readers do better in school, they have higher graduation rates, and they land better paying jobs. And then one last thing, with that tank of gas, libraries are really great at making dollars stretch. We are one of the most efficient spending models out there. We purchase one book one time for about $30, and it can be used dozens of times in a year and be used year over year over year. An example that I wanted to bring to you today is everybody loves James Patterson. He's one of our most famous authors. Everybody checks him out. I looked up circulation data, and some of his most popular books have gone out 40 or 45 times since we purchased it. So that's one $30 spend, and we've gotten 40 to 45 uses out of it. So we're really great at taking our money and making it stretch as long as possible through all kinds of goods and services, not just books. And then we're ready for the next slide, please.
Let's, we allow like 10 minutes for a presentation, so.
Okay.
We've actually already had quite a bit of the library presentation, so make it in a couple minutes.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're on partnerships. Public libraries work with all kinds of partners to help make things happen. We work closely with the Polk County Health Department. We work with WIC. We work with our school districts, Lions clubs, community clubs, and more.
We can move on to that.
Sure.
That's fine. Next one, Claire. Thank you. So why is that 5% so important? Like, it's just to reiterate that it is a reimbursement for services that have already been used for last year, right? So For example, if a business owner buys $20 worth of goods and they sell them, they would expect to sell them for at least 20, right? In the private sector, probably more, right? But in this case, you're not going to keep selling them for $19. That's not a sustainable business model, right? And libraries work in the same way, right? And so we use these funds to reimburse for funds for numbers that have already been used, as you can see. And we can show you where that budget comes from. Claire? Thank you. So how do we build a budget? Just like probably everyone builds a budget in their home and their business, right? We start with our revenue projections, review last year's spending, a couple years back typically, and then prioritize our essential services. Go ahead. So this is just an example of what Frederick's budget looks like. This is the exact budget for my 2025. So you can see my revenues on the side here come from the municipality, from Polk County, and I get money from Burnett County. And then over here are all my expenses. So my salaries, the taxes on those salaries, right? Retirement, the gas, the water. We pay for toilet paper at the library, right? Like we pay for all of the things in addition to our books and the audiobooks and materials, new computers, right? Programming, right? So this is all rolled into what our budget looks like. That's actually what our budget looks like.
And yeah, thank you. So this is the Amory Library budget. So you can kind of see the same thing. We have revenues, we have our expenditures. We have really good numbers for what it costs us for electricity, water, sewer, gas, all of that. So this is an example of a library budget and how detailed it is.
Yeah. So the agreement that we had previously that had expired had agreed that Polk County would reimburse for the residential rural residents up to 100%. And so that was what our ask is today, just to reiterate that. So we've got that plan and the resolution in your packets there. So that's our ask. I know that we're over time, but did anyone have any questions or comments?
Good.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Just so you're aware too, the decision won't be made here today.
Sure. Yeah.
All we do is discuss it and pass it on to the.
Thank you.
Here,
Yep.
make a comment, and Joe, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Right now, this is, moving this to the board, and this resolution is to act on the library plan and their 5-year strategy and priorities moving forward for the next 5 years. Approving this plan is not asking for 100% funding for the library system moving forward and adopting this plan. The ask for outside agencies will come from in June, whether the committee wants to recommend or change the 95%. So this is just adopting their 5-year plan with their strategies and moving forward with that. So I just want to make that clear if I am correct.
Correct. So it's
Okay.
adopting the goal of trying to get it funded at 100% because that is included in their plan, but it does not set the actual funding for now. It doesn't set an actual funding amount. That'll get set in that budget.
Sure.
I'm a little confused by that, because if we're adopting a plan and we're passing on the board with a recommendation, to me, when reading through that, it says that we're recommending to the board to passing it at 100%, despite the fact it hasn't yet. But that's the message it sends. And that's a concern of mine.
I think that's, again, a valid concern from my perspective, but it does not bind anyone in the future to obligate that money. So the political aspect of whether or not it should be 100 or 90 or whatever, what the goal should be, that's fine. But you're not making any financial decision today.
All right, well, we got a resolution. We gotta make a move on. What if it's not approved at the county board? Or here.
So this committee will have to send the plan to the board. It's just with or without recommendation, or send the resolution, which the plan is attached to. The board then will make a determination of whether or not this plan gets adopted. There, I believe, needs to be a plan adopted, but whether this plan needs to be adopted is up in the air.
My concern once again is the verbiage. Can we pass this on to the board, removing the verbiage of the plan from 100 to 100%?
So this committee does not have the authority to modify the plan. The library committee has the authority to modify the plan. So this committee can only modify the resolution, which again is attached to the plan. So you can modify language in the resolution, but the resolution itself does not address any of the actual language within the plan. So it would be difficult for this committee to change what's in the actual plan itself.
Is it possible to move this forward to the county board as their 5-year plan with consideration that there's no financial consideration in this proposal, resolution?
Sure, and that can be made clear.
I just want to clear that up as Don.
That can be made clear at the board. You can send it with or without recommendation, so you could certainly send it without recommendation and then
Okay.
at the board discuss it, or it could be
You're-
put on committee of the whole and you
First
could
on, you
have the
wanna-
whole board take up the issue.
You want to make that resolution then?
I make a motion move for the board without recommendation based on the financial implications addressed in the plan.
Do you want it
I'll
to go,
second that.
do you want it to go to the committee of the whole?
Yes.
So put it on for committee of the whole at the board.
Ethan, you trying to raise your hand and talk, or
No.
you good? All right, we got a motion on the floor. Any more discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, number. Investment.
It's a good day. We're not going to talk about budget,
Good.
but we are going to talk about investments. Thanks for the time today. Investment Committee met a week or so ago, and we want to give the General Government Committee an update. This is a snapshot of our portfolio. Right now, we've got about 34 million under management. And it's roughly about 22% liquid, and the balance is in fixed investments. That would be T-bills and CDs. On this side of the graph, you can see where we were 4 or 5 months ago. So the portfolio has gained almost $500,000 during that time. The yield across the portfolio is about 4% and change. We went from a position of higher liquidity to one of lower liquidity. Now, liquidity is one of our benchmarks. In fact, it's the top benchmark for the investment committee to pay attention to. But we were concerned that we were going to miss some opportunities, and we wanted to lock in some favorable longer-term rates. But it's been an interesting time. So let's go to the next slide. We generally purchase instruments in this, with the duration in this green box from right now out about 2 years. There's not much in the investment policy that says how far out we can or can't go. There's some notion of no securities beyond 7 years. It doesn't specifically say anything about T-bills or CDs. Generally, we're buying in this range in that green box. So this is a picture we were looking at last year. Keeping things in our cash management account, we were getting 5.5%. Right now, we're getting, I think this is as of yesterday, 4.3 and change. So we use this, the income off the yield to fund county operations. And some of us are sweating a little bit because of this drop. I never sweat. Not true. We like to buy for what's called an investment ladder at about that 2-year mark. A year ago, it was over 4.7%. Everybody's moving to cash. Everybody wants to be really, really liquid. And that's making this very funky curve where if you're willing to go out 30 years, you're getting 4.7 and change. You're at 4.3 and a half if you're not willing to make any gambles at all. And for a typical kind of investor trying to keep a little bit of liquidity and get a little bit of investment, a little bit of return, you're in the trough. So that's where we are right now. The investment committee authorized the treasurer and myself to work with our financial advisor to identify if this starts to bump up, to lock in some longer term yields. But right now, we're going to leave more in cash. So to go back to the previous slide again, next time I report back, we'll probably look a little bit more like this. We'll look more liquid, unless we get some opportunities to lock in some longer term rates. Any questions so far? So if we could do it on 2 slides, Claire, that would be great. There you go. These maturing investments, we've got about 5 million coming to maturity here before July 1st. Going to leave them in that cash account unless we get that opportunity that I was describing. We want to make sure we maintain at least 7 million so we can finance county projects as they come along. And this last bullet, because of the liquidity requirement that we've got in our investment strategy, we want to, most of our buys will be in T-bills and not CDs. We like to spend some in CDs to support local banking, but for the most part, we'll be buying government instruments. Any questions about that? We'll go to the last slide on this report. I don't think we've talked too much about the investment processes and controls that the investment committee and this committee and the board have, but I think it's worthwhile to go through them. Overall, the county board approves of financial policy related to investments. So when we talk about the financial policy a little bit later today, embedded in that in section 5.3 is the investment policy. So you guys look at it, give us feedback, and you did that a year ago. If there's any more changes, we can certainly make them. But I think we made a lot of progress with that part. It is part of the financial policy. That section 5.3 lays out the investment objectives. That could change at any time. It's your document. But right now in this order, they're liquidity, safety, yield, and diversification. We mostly talk about liquidity and yield because all the instruments we're allowed to invest in are really safe. Diversification really just means time diversification in terms of term of investments. So we're not buying stock X and stock Y. We're buying T-bill A term and T-bill B term. Third point on our processes and controls. The investment committee, which meets quarterly, determines the strategy. The treasurer, myself, and PMA, we look at what's going on in the market. We make specific. We're going to think about the market and what needs to be done. I recommend a purchase, and the treasurer executes or tells PMA to execute on our behalf. And then we review the outcomes with the investment committee, the general government committee, and once a year with the board. So that's the investment processes and controls roadmap here. Any questions about that? I will mention too that our auditors review our investments. And when I first took this job, I didn't know what IS and CMS were, and I was a little worried that they were not particularly safe, but we get notification from our auditors every year that they are very safe, so we're not worried about those. Any questions?
Thanks. All right, discussion regarding telecommuting agreement data.
Yeah. So in your packet, you've got a graph of telecommuting data. This was requested at last month's meeting. What you got on the left is a pie chart, shows of the 360 non-GAM employees, we've got about 60 that are on some form of telecommuting. 43 of those are non-exempt, which means these are folks that aren't salaried, and we got 16 that are salaried of the 59. To the right, you'll see the bar graph that lays out the departments where those telecommuters are working. So we got 12 in behavioral health, 12 in Department of Children and Families, 9 in Corp Counsel and Child Support, 8 in Public Health, 7 in Economic Support, 3 in Business Services, as part of CSD, Human Resources, part of my division, 2, Land Information, part of Sarah's, 2, Admin, Mo's and mine, 1, Emergency Management, Don Burrows, 1, Facilities, Rex, Parks, Rod Polk, 1, IT, me, 1. So that's the graph of the employees that are on telecommuting. The majority of these folks are hybrid. I think we only have 1 employee that is not working in our building ever, except for coming in for an occasional meeting. And that employee is part of a consortium, so she's hired by a number of counties. You can pick which county she lives in. But the majority of people in this list are in the office part of the week and working at the remote location part of the week.
Questions, comments? It's good. Okay, we'll move on to discussion of zoning compliance technician position.
I can take it from there. Can I sit right here, Chair? Is that okay with everyone? Okay. When the compliance tech was brought before the county board, I think 1.5 years ago, it was talked about sustaining itself with revenues. And there was a simple revenue model that was presented at the time. I've given that to you again today. I talked about the potential for the number of cases it would see as far as tickets, what that related to as far as revenues that would come in. What we've seen with the position is actually, I think the expected was 150 tickets. He's actually, not tickets, but cases, and he's actually handled 233 permits, of which has brought in $65,000 in revenue. So I mean, that's really when you look at the model here, we were at about 87% of the forecasted revenue for the year from April to April. So I realize that that's $10,000 short of the expected revenue. So I guess it's just really important to note that the position has also handled 157 complaints, of which 103 have been resolved. And that's hard to put a dollar amount to. I think Joe and Mr. Loso and Mr. Schiefer have put a dollar amount to what that judicial economy might look like. But of those resolved and of those complaints, 55 were junk or travel trailers that were handled, and that value is not always revenue generating. When you have those cleanups, it doesn't always bring in revenue. So that's just another side note, but so yeah, I mean, the long and the short of it is we met 87% of the revenue, and that's where we're at for that position. He brought in $65,000 of actual money. So are there any questions about that or anything else? Yes, Dan?
I have 2. What's the split in the 50,000 and the 15 to come up
Oh.
with 65,000?
Yeah, great question. I'm sorry. So the 15,000 are after the fact fees in revenue that would not have been generated had they just been straight permits. So those were complaints that came in for structures or things that had been built that were not permitted. And so those were after the fact fees that came in.
So what were the number of permits generated, not by this individual, but by other individuals as compared year over year? So my question is, did we have a drop in other permits done by other individuals that were picked up by this individual?
I guess total, Dan, I'll have to get that information for you.
Well, you understand it would be valuable if we're going to truly assess the value of this additional person. We need to know if he took away from somebody we were already paying to do the job.
Right,
And is there a balance to that?
right. Or, yeah, or an issue before with
Right.
not having compliance or not having,
So were we not getting him, or do we take, because we added him, this one took some away from him for her to, you understand my point?
Yep,
So
yep.
before, in order for us to make a true evaluation, we truly need to know the overall spectrum of what took place.
Right. Mhm. And if there was a service gap in another area that's now picked up, sure, I understand. Yeah.
Would you, looking forward, I mean, obviously some of the, what would I say, the uglier situations were caught first. Would you foresee the numbers going down going forward as far as the number of violations and things that they check up on?
No, I don't see them going down. I mean, if you want me to elaborate, I can, but at this point, the number of complaints are not subsiding.
And some of the revenue was waived on these compliance ones. I mean, we have 157, 158, 153 solved. So some of the fees that were attached to that were waived to come into compliance also, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. And so just to put a monetary amount to resolving cases that you won't see on any line item, you're not going to see that money specific to that position. But every time you resolve a case and it doesn't go to trial, just doing some back of the napkin math here on the wages that the people involved in a trial receive, you're talking about the judge, you're talking about the court reporter, the jury, if they ask for a jury trial, that's pulling 6 people. Actually, it's pulling 12 people for the full, 6 people for the full day out of the economy for a day. So that's a financial impact to the county regardless of whether or not we're paying them. You're talking about paying corp counsel to prosecute, the zoning tech to sit there all day next to corp counsel in the courtroom. The zoning administrator will probably at a minimum have to testify, so they'll have to be there for 2 to 3, maybe 4 hours. You're talking about our paralegal that sits there and makes sure that we have witnesses in line and ready to go. Talk about the clerk of courts that stays there. And you're talking about bailiffs that are there all day to handle the jury. Again, back of the napkin math, if it's a jury trial, you're talking about $4,172 in cost just in the wages for those people. And if it's a non-jury, so you won't need bailiffs and you won't be looking at the economic impact of losing 12 people's wages for the day, you're looking at $3,000 of, again, just wages. That's not contemplating the technology that's being used, not contemplating the court's time, not contemplating lights, all of those things. So, and that's just that day. So that doesn't contemplate corporation counsel preparing time, doesn't contemplate preparing witnesses, doesn't contemplate any discovery that needs to occur. Again, doesn't contemplate additional follow-up visits out to the property. So that's just the day of trial. So anytime you can prevent that from happening, you're talking about saving at a minimum of $3,000 to $4,000. And so if there are 103 cases that have been brought into compliance and they aren't getting citations, which means they're not asking for trials, that's a lot of potential savings.
So with all due respect, what was the difference between 2023 and now then, if that's what you're gonna sell me on? So let's understand that as well.
What I can say is in the last year, we have had a pretty significant uptick in citations issued. We have had 2 set for trial. They ended up not going. Is that right? 3 set for trial that have not gone. So we have seen a significant uptick. Now, I don't know whether or not they are specifically related to Dylan because I don't deal with that. I just see the citation come in. What I will say is that that position is the only position that is coming to court for those citations. So we're not seeing the other zoning techs that are issuing permits. We're only seeing that position coming and enforcing those citations.
The department did not, basically did not do much for compliance in 2023, Supervisor Rec, like.
I just used that as an example.
Or in 2022, like, I don't think that it was a priority at that time. And that's one of the things I heard as coming back is that we have some compliance issues. Like, why do we have ordinances if we're not enforcing them, like all of these things? And, you know, it really was an issue and he is busy. I mean, it is not, and I guess, you know, I mean, sorry, Don, not to throw you under the bus, but this was a simple model that we worked on together. It's not throwing under the bus, but I don't think we were far off when we just looked at some basic numbers. I mean, 87% of the forecasted revenue, hopefully in 2026, it's 100% of the forecasted revenue. But like Keith mentioned, some of these low hanging fruit or the things that were immediate are not always revenue generating when you're helping somebody, fix a travel trailer issue or clean up a junkyard. Just,
It's just hard when we have to answer to our constituents about something that we've done and supported with the understanding it would be self-funding and it's not.
yeah,
We need to understand before we come back to the plate again, where that's gonna go and where it's gonna end up, or
Yeah.
at least from my seat in the house, that's the way I see it.
yep, we're finding that, where's that $10,000 or,
Right.
like I said,
And it's really hard to make a decision based on 1 year's data. I understand that.
yeah,
I
appreciate that too.
all the discussions and everything that's been going on, I think it's prudent that we look at that with both eyes wide open.
Did we approve a 1 year trial? So do we need to extend that then, or it's over?
I actually thought we forecasted out 2 years. But I do think in the budget, I'm not sure, I'd have to go back and look at the notes on that, but we did forecast out 2 years. Don,
The position is in the staffing plan. Remain in the staffing plan unless we get a determination that we should remove it.
oh yeah,
So we should have those numbers. Those numbers will be in the budget process as we move forward. Now we're passing revenues and moving forward with that. And again, I agree with your point. 1 year data is hard to get off the ground right away.
and if we need to try to, I'm sorry, one more comment, I'm trying to maybe come up with some more exact numbers for those things like Mr. Loso said, don't have concrete numbers to them. You know, of those 103 resolved cases, maybe trying to put more exact pen to paper on that, like what did that mean for the judicial economy? I don't know. I mean, obviously just rough, if it's $3,000 saved by a resolved case, that's $300,000 that, that Polk County didn't spend in cases.
Well, I think Supervisor Karpinski was going was the fact that if now we're all of a sudden we're putting some teeth to some things and making people comply, how much quicker does everybody adopt and say, okay, we can't do that anymore? And at that point, or do we have the same volume or do we not? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the unknown.
Right, and that's the unknown going forward as you see in 5 years, like you said, that word gets out now, someone's watching. And to see those, at 158, 160, 200, whatever, start to trend down, which is where we want people in compliance without having to go on property and cite them.
Mr. Chair. Just a comment on this. I mean, a lot of these complaints come in at the town level. And for the past several years, the towns don't have somebody to send out and enforce this. It's really nice to have somebody that we can turn to and say, look, this is a county ordinance. Can you guys help us with this? We've got this situation here. And I gotta say, I know at least 3 or 4 of these are in town hall then, and it's been very helpful to have Dylan there. I'd like to at least see it continue for a while.
Is it not? Isn't town, if the town advocates the zoning to the county, don't you take care of it?
Well, yeah, but a lot of times how we hear about things is through the complaint system,
Yeah, right.
and a lot of times our contacts are the town officials that will call. And for a period of time, I understand there was no one to field those calls. And, I can appreciate just, taking a step back and looking at the sheer number of permits that is issued, even just by nature of our geography and the large number of class 1 bodies of water that we have in Polk County, the number of towns that have town zoning versus county zoning. Just taking a look and doing that analysis, I think is good and was needed and will continue to do that. I mean, and that's why I just wanted to give you the basic number, like no smoke and mirrors, it brought in 65,000. We said it would bring in 75,000. So it is a little short. And I mean, putting the number to the judicial side of things is something that you guys can all, go through, but I'm sorry, Jeremy.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm just listening. I have a
Okay.
couple comments, but
That's all I
you want me
had.
to
Go
go
ahead.
now? Okay. So a couple months ago, I was listening to the environmental services update, and Dylan was there speaking, and he said that there's only 130 complaints received. You've like tripled that number. How did we get so much more?
He had 157 complaints to date, so there must have been like 20 more that came in from that date, and 103 of them are resolved. He's issued 233 permits. So maybe there was a confusion on that data.
Okay. And what type of permits? Because I thought he was just doing compliance.
No, yeah, that's the other thing is that he's, as a zoning technician, his focus is compliance and he's handling more compliance, but he still does see day-to-day folks that come in, and he can handle general permitting as well. So every once in a while, or he will handle in specific areas, also general land use permits.
Okay,
like
but
I'm
all those land use permits were handled before him. So I don't see how that increases our revenue. I guess I'd like to see on the budget line item what he's brought in without those permits that we've already received.
Okay, like I talked about, just doing like the general office analysis too of maybe what was working, what was not working. Even, I think, average number of permits per technician. Polk County has generally been stressed in that specific area, but yeah, I think Supervisor Ruck asked for some of that information, Jeremy, and I'm happy to get that out as well.
And the turnaround on permits with one more person giving permits out being more efficient for our residents.
Yeah, I mean, customer service is something we're always looking at for sure. Okay, so I have a couple action items for myself as far as more data needed. Is there anything else?
Does Dylan specifically meet all the requirements for the position long term?
Yes. But he is still working on a certificate. If that's what you're asking, for any job duty that he's been assigned so far, Supervisor Hall, he meets the requirements. He has not been required to go out and do any sewer inspections at this time, if that's what you're alluding to.
All right, anything else on this matter? We keeping it on the agenda or what's happening with it?
Good.
Keep it on the agenda?
At least to get that information back.
Okay, so, looking at number of permits total,
Year over year.
year over year.
Yep.
Okay.
I'd like to see it on until we get through the budget cycle of this year.
So I guess just for process, is that something that I continue to discuss with the Environmental Services Committee as well then, or like,
The position?
yeah, is it, I mean, obviously they're,
Probably be a really good idea to, if you want to keep it on.
yeah, I mean, obviously they're supportive of it and have also looked at the information. So I guess I'll just,
Well, it comes here for financial reasons,
right,
why
right,
we have to look at it.
right. So if I'm
That it
looking,
was a 1-year deal.
Yep.
So if it's
I
gonna.
think our
continue-
financial picture has really changed in the last year. So
On the agenda. All right, what's going on with the county email signatures?
Go.
In your packet, you've got a memo from myself to Administrator Norby. You all can read, so I won't go over that exhaustively. Our sort of interpretation of what the committee was looking for is some movement towards standardization of email logos, or email signatures. And so we're thinking in terms of top level considerations and secondary considerations. When you look at the treatments as you go through your packet, you'll see that we have folks in the organization that need to show 2 logos with their email, which means there's some significant design considerations. It makes it very tough to have a vertically oriented email signature if there's 2 logos. So that's a consideration in terms of uniformity. Color palette, we've got a couple of parts of the organization that don't use the standard color palette. We'd like for them to be able to preserve their own identities. So GAM has a different color palette. And the sheriff's is slightly different than the standard palette. Secondary considerations is information that folks or departments might want to add to their email signatures. And from our perspective, those include taglines, might be a statement about the county. Some folks have right now inspirational statements. We're probably going to not let that happen. And then there's been some discussion of pronouns. So when you look through the treatments in the packet, we've varied these things so you can sort of get a sense of how they might look if we went to some form of standardization. The first one on page 2 is a treatment with 2 logos. In situations require 2 logos, it's going to need to be in a horizontal layout. This particular case, it's a standard palette of colors. It's nice that the Great Rivers Consortium logo is almost the exact same colors as ours, but we would have from time to time situations where that logo would not look like ours. In this particular
They're going to put
case,
these online.
In the,
I don't see it in the packet.
yeah, it's not in the packet.
I don't have it.
I can
Okay. It's
send it to you. I can send it to you right now, Jeremy.
Okay.
One moment, please. Barry, sent you a version of it yesterday. Could you send it to Supervisor Hall, please? Thanks. Going to the page 3 in your packet. This is just really the same saw in the previous, but just with one logo. I'll point out standard color palette. In this case, the preferred pronoun line is included and there is a tagline. Moving to the GAM logo on page 4. Again, different sort of logo and treatment. In this case, preferred pronoun line is included. I'm not saying that GAM's email signatures have any of these right now. This is just the treatment. And some of these things were randomly distributed, like the taglines and the preferred pronouns. So that's a third horizontal. On the page 5, we've got going to the vertical options. Here we've got the Polk County logo, the normal standard Polk County color palette. In this case, the preferred pronoun line is not included and there's no tagline. And then we move to the last page, which has a rendering of a vertical treatment for the sheriff's office. So I'll mention that it will be very difficult to get down to one email signature type because of the different logos, if nothing else. We're a complex organization and we do believe that standardization is important. It may cost us some money to be able to have the kind of standardization we want and control it effectively. Our initial estimates, might be as much as $6,000 a year in terms of additional software to add the Microsoft 365 installation. So there's some costs associated with this. In a $70 million budget, it's not a lot, but there is cost associated with doing the standardization. Right now, departments are basically in control of all aspects of their signatures and they sort of push what they want to do down through their employee base. And I'm not sure there's a whole lot of monitoring of that. So that's the sort of situation that we have. We can move forward. If you were to direct the administrator toward more standardization, I think we got path forward, but we need to hear from the committee and then the board that you wanted that done.
Where'd this come from?
So a request from Supervisor Hall, the last meeting.
All right. Let's just speak to it then.
Yeah, I guess I would like to see it move on. I'd like the pronouns taken off of all the signature blocks. But the standard, as far as the logos and stuff, I think they look fine.
Would you like to see the main Polk County logo on everyone's signature?
I think like the sheriff's department stuff has their kind of own logo, so I think professionally it reflects that department. And I'm fine with the taglines and stuff like that. I think you look at that signature block and you know that it came from the county on each of those.
Here, Mike, am I correct in your thinking that you just assume no matter what things they want to alter, what other logos they need, if they use the baseline Polk County logo in that signature block, is that truly what you're after?
Yep.
So you leave that optional where like on page 2, the department could have their signature alongside of the Polk County name? But not require them to? I mean, the only part they'd be required to have is the main Polk County emblem there?
Probably, with you not being able to look at it, Jeremy, I think that's probably what you're looking at. If you had the main logo in every one of their signatures, despite what other additional logo they may need to add, that's really what you're targeting from the start, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Which shouldn't require a lot more expense as far as setting new templates and everything, if we're just putting the baseline Polk County logo in conjunction with everything else they need for their additional division. That shouldn't require a whole bunch of extra expense.
And you're looking at that including the sheriffs and GAM?
Sure, no, they would be individual.
They'd be individual.
Yep, they're really not. Jeremy, am I correct? I'm trying to speak for you, but I don't know if the sheriff should be alone, GAM should be alone. Any other function of the county should include the baseline county logo.
Correct. Yep.
Makes sense.
And then the pronoun line you want to remove from everyone, or you want to leave that optional?
I'd want to remove it.
Do most departments typically use the line for pronouns?
We have some individuals who use pronoun line. I'm not sure.
It's up to the individual, not to the,
That's my understanding.
there isn't a department or anywhere that requires a list of pronouns?
No, it's all optional.
All right. I'm not sure how this came up or where we're going with it, but is someone gonna take care of it or what are we doing?
So as of right now, I think the only request is that there be some level of uniformity. If this really is a management function of the administrator, so the decision of what the signature block looks like and how that gets administered is all the administrator's decision-making. Theoretically, the board
Recommendation.
could make a recommendation either just through consensus, hey, just so you know, administrator, this is what we think. Or you could pass a resolution saying that you want the administrator to develop and present a set of templates for the board to approve for a signature block. You could do something like that. But
Question. Is there any input at the present time for this from any of the affected agencies? Have you heard, has this been discussed with the rest of the county?
Department heads
This has been brought up at division directors yesterday. Is that what we're looking at?
What's the input from, from Golden Age or whichever other entity?
There was not a lot of input. The information was brought forward that we'd be bringing this to committee in this format for discussion on, not sure what the ask was or what the intent of the ask was. So we're trying to get that information.
Based on what's been discussed, Mo, are you comfortable trying to formulate something you think can standardize that just utilizes the county logo, leaving Golden Age separate, leaving the sheriff's department separate, and then putting something together with your department heads that would meet what Jeremy's looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And maybe we don't need to go further than that.
Wouldn't think it would be a lot of changes. I mean, we have the logo and just request that anybody that's not using it, use it along with whatever else they want.
Right. Basically, the only issue seems to be the pronouns attached to the email, attached to the signature lines. Is there any other issues with here or there that we need to be worried about or brought to where we should be fine?
It should be fine. I think my perspective, uniformity is good. It does limit any liability. It prevents fraud. Someone pretending that they're from the county and confusing people in the public. So I think it is a good idea to have signature blocks, but other than that.
And this is something the uniformity will add to the handbook. So it shows in there. So.
All right, then we're good.
Do it, done.
All right, we're gonna review the Q1 payments exceeding 75,000.
Thank you, sir. So on the first page is just a list of all the disbursements that were $75,000 or more from January 1st through first quarter. And then if you flip the page over, you'll see these aggregated in a pivot table. So the multiple disbursements are bunched together. And you can see that big winner was paying off the Bremer Bank loan for the building here. Then the second big winner, and this is an every month or every quarter kind of thing, that's 1.7, almost $1.8 million to our health carrier. And then WRS Recycling Center and down the line from there. So this is a record of the expenses for the first quarter that were over that $75,000 limit.
Elaborate on what the fines sent to the state were.
I'll do my best. My understanding is that some of these have to do with court cases, might be a judgment against an individual. Might be a parent who needs to pay some restitution or
That's
I
what
think we
pulls
collect that
together.
money and then percentage goes back to the states.
Yep.
That's what you're seeing on that one.
Thank you.
questions.
Good. All right, review of the financial policies.
This is probably the last time, nope, not quite the last time I'll be in front of you today. I just want to point out that what you have in your packet, this is a moving target, and we get input from supervisors and also from staff. Since the packet went out, Shabana sent it out last week, had further conversations with Kim O'Connell, Supervisor O'Connell, also with staff. And so there are some additional changes in here. Changes from way back are on page 8, 13, 20, 30, and then 33 through 38. And I'll walk you through those just so you're aware. So the handout that you've got, and Jeremy, we'll send you a copy of this. On page 8, we just wanted to make sure that folks remembered that county board amendments budget amendments require a 2/3 vote of the board. That's in state statute, but we sometimes get confused. And Corporation Council has alerted me that if state statute changes and we don't change this, then well, statute holds. But we want to make sure that was in there. We got a typo corrected below that in terms of a statute. That's page 8. And if you go over to page 13, simplified some language and just pointed directly to federal regulation rather than try to spell out what the federal regulation was actually trying to say. Again, if we misrepresent something that's in statute or the Federal Register, we're still required to meet what the statute or register says. So we want to eliminate possible sources of error. Next page would be page 20. We've got some questions from departments about what happens when equipment, obsolete equipment is sold. It goes to the general fund. The department doesn't get to keep it. Below that on the investment, and this is, I think, the only change to the investments or one of the few. We're just striking out the fact that this was already passed by this particular committee. We don't want that to go through to the board. We're going to move forward now to page. It's like 30. Tim O'Connell mentioned that we had some language in our refinancing section on debt that held us to particular percentages rather than whether it was just beneficial to the county. So we simplified that language. Thanks again to Supervisor O'Connell for that. Now page 33. We had some confusion in the document about who did what in terms of particular properties that were owned by the county, whether ES handled it or this committee. We clarified that. And again, Supervisor O'Connell pointed that out to us. That's the top of page 33. Just some further clarification further down in 33 on county real property and the report that we need to do for you each year. And on the next page, just clearing up some process parts, again, from Supervisor O'Connell. We had some items that were put up to the county board. He said that in the past, really, it's been the General Government Committee. Not having encountered that myself during my tenure, I assumed he knew what he was talking about. We changed that language. Next page on page 35, clearing up some, this is important, I think, in terms of outstanding accounts. Actually, the department heads do a lot of the work and the general government director is just responsible for pulling the information together from time to time. So this language on page 35 clarifies that. On page 36, another thing that Supervisor O'Connell pointed out is where we could get uniformity, we should. We're talking about collection here of county bills. Golden Age Manor bills are due 10 days after receipt of services. That's a little different than we had having the county overall, but we need to maintain that difference. A little bit of language cleanup on the same page 36. Over to page 37. Just took out information that was confusing about reporting of overdue accounts. So I think we've only got one more. That would be page 38. We looked at the statute. Supervisor O'Connell was wondering if we were actually in compliance with section 209 on annual review. It's not clear that we have been. We looked at statute and cleaned up the language in this section. And the treasurer and I have had a meeting about how we'll make sure that we do that each year. That's the responsibility of the treasurer. So I think the financial policy from my perspective is in much better shape than it was before. And what I would recommend is that we bring forth a resolution at the next meeting for your consideration. Take this policy as it's now amended forward to the county board.
You're recommending that we put it on the agenda for next month and then have a resolution?
That's correct, sir. So we bring a resolution to this committee next month for your consideration, and then if it passed, it'd go on to the board.
There wouldn't be any action to take on it then this month, would there?
No. No.
Gives you another shot to review it and look at it and then come to the next meeting and then moving on to the board.
Here, I mean, was there any, what was posted in our packets online the other day? Was there any changes from that to this?
Yeah, so if you were to look in your packet and identify the ones that are purple, those few changes were made late last week, after further discussion with Supervisor O'Connell, staff and the treasurer.
So we'll receive a copy of that electronically when we set the budget or the meeting for agenda for
That's
our next
absolutely
meeting.
correct. Yes, sir.
Great, we got a resolution 1325 to amend the budget to incorporate carry forward funds from the 2024 budget.
Thank you, sir. That's our opportunity to move money from 24 to the 25 budget for projects that were not completed. The total of those is about $3.5 million.
I move to approve.
Second.
Hold on, we're just moving it to the county board with or without a recommendation.
With,
With recommendations.
Second.
Okay, so that's your motion.
Yep.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Carries. All right, well, the administrator's report.
Mr. Chair, sales tax overall for March, we're up, still above 5.1% from 2024. March was down itself 7% from 2024. Some of the projects happening right now, County Road B from Atlas to 35, you'll start seeing work on that mid-April here. The DD Kennedy Bridge was finally moved forward and awarded to Larson Construction. That's been a project in the works for 5 years, waiting on DNR review of the process and the plans. It came in over, it's naturally came in over budget for 5 years waiting in the queue. So we'll be monitoring the cost of that project. The grandstand, we got last week the final information from the Fair Society on some changes on the plans. So that'll go out for bid here in the next couple weeks. Wait to see how those bids come in. We're still watching executive orders, what's happening on the federal side. We did have some grants that were cut the end of March. One was the RISE grant for child immunization. That was $8,000. And then the remaining funds for the COVID immunization project, there were still 49,000 left in that fund. We can no longer charge back to that grant that was cut. We did have a youth, at the end of the month, I think they shipped them yesterday. That's gonna cost the county, $1,268 per day until the end of June. And after that, the increase of cost goes to $2,305 a day, which is approximately about $538,000 for the rest of the year. That child stays in retention, which probably will. Once he's aged out, that's gonna cost the county about $1.6 million. There is, cost coming back to that we try to recoup with the state, but it is fractional. So that is gonna be a budgeting implication on how we, budget for that one. The Public Works meeting for May 6th is scheduled to be held at the recycling center at 2:00 in the afternoon. Prior to that, they're gonna be a tour at 1:30 to review the project there, so if you're interested in seeing what that project's like. Right now, Thursday, April 3rd, we had a fire in the jail laundry room. I sent that email out just so everyone's aware of that. It did burn a hole through the roof with that. So that dryer was installed yesterday, I believe, the replacement for that, and the final repairs will be done here shortly. The other thing I have is a crisis ad hoc committee. We finally got a date set for a meeting with the legislators in the Northwest regions. That's gonna be May 23rd in Rice Lake currently right now. Time and venue has not been set. So once that information is out there, I will pass that on to the board. And as of right now, then I'm just continuing to watch the stock market and some of the federal things to see what our budget's gonna look like coming for next year. So I have,
What was the cost of the repairs for the fire?
We do not have those costs yet. They were turned into an insurance claim to be covered under insurance.
Should have been here. Cut costs. Where were you?
All right, anything on our work plan we need to update or review? On schedule?
Yes, sir.
How about subject matters for the next meeting? Already identified a couple of them.
Numbers, yeah.
Would you like, we've been talking about the recycling fee, in Public Works, Public Safety, that's where that's generated. Would you guys like some numbers on that? As that's gonna be part of the budget process also moving forward.
That'd be good.
We'll add that to the agenda, discussion on the recycling fee.
Yeah, maybe we'll have some public comment.
Bring it up.
All right, one item to go.
To adjourn. Second.
Aye. Stand adjourned at 9:46.